Hi folks, welcome to Wednesday's edition of the I Write Radio video stroke podcast. I've got Stewart Lockhead and Jimmy Hutton as per usual. I'm Norrie Stewart. Westminster has decided to go all, I was going to say viral, all technological. They've had both Welsh questions and Prime Minister's questions, albeit without a Prime Minister, up on the screens. So we've had remote questions, although there were people sitting in the actual chamber. We've had our daily Butte House First Minister's questions today. So I think we're going to start there. No doubt we will meander off down other avenues. So, Jimmy, were you impressed with Westminster on the screen?
Yeah, it was pretty much as sad as I expected it to be, mate. Without the baying of opposition benches, Dominic Raab could basically just say what he wanted. He only even engaged at the last question when he knew that Keir Starmer wouldn't be coming back at him because he's such a coward. That was the point where he actually came back and had a pop at Starmer. Prior to that, he just avoided the questions and babbled on meaningless remarks about how wonderful people have been reacting in the country and how splendid our NHS is. It was a complete and utter waste of time. I don't know why they bothered. That certainly is not scrutiny.
I noticed a change of tact as well. The testing, the 100,000 a day testing thing is now the capability to do it.
Yeah,
it's not we're going to do it.
And we had the capability to test 40,000 a couple of days ago. We only tested 18. It doesn't matter if we have the ability to test 40 if we're only testing 18.
I do think a bit of honesty has crept into the debate about that, because it is difficult getting enough testing stations spread across the country. You know,
do you actually believe that they had 22,000 tests that they couldn't do? Because he said we have to build demand for it. The demand's there. The demand's been there for weeks. So his sentence about building demand was utter rubbish.
Jimmy, I've absolutely no doubt that they've got 22,000 tests that they couldn't use. They've got a whole stockpile of nuclear weapons on the Clyde that they can't use. You know, it's the same category. We've got all these tests, aren't we? Great. But we're not actually going to test anybody with them.
Well, exactly. I'm sorry, but in London alone, if there are 40,000, if the capability to test 40,000 nationwide, there should be the capability to test 20,000 in London, given how very much London's been the epicenter of this thing. And they didn't test 20,000 in London. So I think they're just abject liars, mate. They'll say whatever they want, and the press aren't going to pull them for it, because the press are now right up their keisters, mate. They're waiting for this big campaign when Boris comes back to hail him as the Messiah and that everything's brilliant.
Stuart?
I watched PMQs to review Keir Starmer's performance. Given that he's been absolute shite so far, I thought he might improve himself to just a pisser. He didn't get anywhere today. He had 6 or 7 questions. He did nothing at all. He did nothing to improve my impression of his performance throughout this pointless 3-month campaign by Labour. As far as I'm concerned, I'm marking PMQs on Labour's performance as an opposition, and they're getting 0.
He kind of reminded me of Jackson Carlaw, but didn't do it as well as Jackson Carlaw.
Oh, behave. Jackson Carlaw. At least he asked questions, mate. At least today, Starmer asked questions that should have got answered and just got ignored.
Well,
he asked for specific points to be answered.
But Jimmy, the point is, he's got 6 questions. If he asks a question and he gets ignored, he should ask the question again. He should do a Piers Morgan.
Sure, he's the frontline politician, no you. You're sitting saying he should ask the same question again and again and again. How stupid is he going to look?
No, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you.
Well, I mean, I do think, I think this idea of, right, we can't be nasty to the government because it's a pandemic and, you know, it's the worst thing that's happened since pan bread got taken off the shelves. He has to put pressure to be the beacon of light the opposition are desperate for. He has to perform, and he has to find a way to do it, and he didn't find it today. Although I notice on Twitter, all the Labour supporters are, oh, isn't he wonderful? Isn't he fantastic? Isn't he forensic? And I think the expression was laser-like questioning. No, because laser-like questioning forces an answer. He didn't get an answer.
How can you force an answer to somebody who specifically has been instructed to go in there and not give answers?
Yeah, you've got to find a way to trip him up.
Well,
and
I mean,
being nice to him doesn't he cut it?
He was actually in the chamber, which would give him a great advantage over 90% of the rest of the questions we saw. Especially if you watched Welsh questions beforehand, which was a union-loving love fest, which was a very odd affair. I think we discovered that there's an awful lot of Tory MPs in Wales that we didn't realise. But the time Keir Starmer finished and we actually got, oh, David Mundell, he couldn't get his techie to work. He was lined up in between Keir Starmer, Ian Blackford. Oh, the poor man. I feel sorry for him.
And that didn't look like a setup at all.
Well, okay.
Mate, the whole thing about this questioning at this point in time is that nobody's doing it right. Nobody's doing it. You see Jackson Carlaw yesterday at FMQs. Now, he came out on the Scottish News on STV an hour and a half after FMQs had finished and actually said he'd just sent a letter to Nicholas Sturgeon asking her this, this and this. He didn't have the balls to stand up and ask her in the chamber because he knew he would get put down. That's why it's easier for them to go in the news and say these things.
Jimmy, he could have picked either of his favourite subjects. People keep phoning me up because they've got stocks of PPE. What are you going to do about it? People keep phoning me up because they run care homes and they've not got any PPE. Well, okay. Jackson, do you know what to do? Give the addresses of the ones with the PPE to the care home owners that haven't got the PPE.
Okay.
He was. I couldn't believe he was sitting on STV News saying that he'd sent a letter to Nicholas Sturgeon about a couple of things. You've just been in Parliament an hour ago and you didn't question her on them, you fat mess.
Didn't we discover the last question that Keir Starmer asked? Didn't we discover that apparently 8,000 separate businesses have offered PPE? British businesses have offered PPE to the government.
Yeah, there's an ongoing scandal as well that the Guardian have just pumped something up about the company set up to distribute, to centralise and distribute the PPE around England has actually been sold in the middle of this pandemic.
Who to? Rees-Mogg?
No, apparently it was an American company that had set things up.
Oh, well, right.
It's been sold in the middle of all this. So you've got to wonder if they were concentrating more on getting the sale right and making a few quid than they were on actually getting the stuff out to the places that needed it.
Well, I think we could possibly finish with Prime Minister's questions. We could be here all afternoon after all. We've seen such a lot. But Ian Blackford, given that there was not an awful lot he was going to be able to do sitting there in Skye, he must have been having a wobbly bottom, thinking, well, I live in the Isle of Skye and my techie could easily let me down if the ferry doesn't run. I know that's not true. He did ask a reasonable question, and we discovered something that I don't suppose either of the three of us knew, that apparently universal basic income, which is Norrie's favourite hobby horse, 100 MPs have supported the idea from 7 different parties from all across the UK, which means, does that mean a DUP or Sinn Féin as well? And he came up with a slogan, and that no one should be left behind, because I think he made a good point that they are having difficulties. We'd all appreciate this. Taxi drivers, self-employed people, 0-hour contracts, all kinds of people have been left behind on this so-called support from the government during this crisis. UBI sorts that problem, doesn't it? But he said,
the only thing the government have got to say is that this is a world-leading scheme. It's awfully nice. It's awfully nice that they themselves judge that they are the world leaders, but it's not getting to people. We're 35 days into this, and people haven't had their checks. People have got mortgage. You know, it's easy to say you've got a mortgage holiday. You're not going to get evicted for 3 to 6 months. That relies on landlords actually waiving the rent. People have to pay their bills next week, and they've not got any dough to do it. And Rishi Sunak being patted on the back by Dominic Raab and Matt Hancock isn't helping anybody.
True. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure I said when this was all announced that your problem was not that they weren't going to do anything. It's that what they were going to do for the wee guy was never getting to the wee guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing was the loans being stymied by the banks wanting to put their own products in there before the government product.
Aye. Well, but did you see that thing? I think it might have actually, no, it was in PMQs actually, but there's a report for Hospitality UK where they're saying that round about a third of pubs and hotels and guest houses now will just go under. That's a third of that sector gone.
Yeah,
God only knows how many jobs that's going to cost.
And the people have this thing in their head that a pub's a gold mine. The overhead, the margins in pubs are so squeezed.
Aye. To make money at a pub, you have to work hell of a long hours.
Or you've got to own the business. You've got to own the bricks and mortar. Because if you're leasing, that leasing company treats you effectively like a wage earning manager.
Right.
You know, and people didn't realise it. They're going to wonder what happened to all the Red Lions and Queen's Heads.
There's going to be thousands of pubs and restaurants that go to the wall, mate. And there's also this thing where they were first in. They were the first to get shut. And clearly they're going to be last out. And they are begging for more help than has been given to them. And all they're getting is, we have set up a world-leading scheme.
And I'll tell you what's going to upset all the Tory voters as well. Everybody's standing around street corners drinking because they've no pub to go to. Mark my words.
Oh, the NIMBYs will be going nuts if that happens, mate.
I'll tell you the other interesting thing I'm beginning to notice, that Jackson Carlaw in Scotland isn't bothering to put much legwork in for anything. All he's doing is listening to criticism of the British government and then taking that in his wee pocket and throwing it to the unionist press up here. So if the discussion of the day is a cock-up by the Tory government in Westminster on PPE, Jackson Carlaw will have a quote out there about how the Scottish government's failing on PPE, etc., etc., etc. Just repeat.
Can I just throw in a quick one? I suspect, given this is this coronavirus emergency is new, that each one of us probably knows as much about what's going on as any of these professional journalists or politicians, because it's all new to them as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of shown by the how poor the questioning has been, particularly at the Scottish presser, but also they didn't pick up on things that I would say are important. There's Barry Gardiner. Now, I'm no fan of Barry Gardiner, but I thought he nailed Rab the day. He said that Sage recommended an urgent lockdown 3.5 weeks before the cabinet agreed to lockdown. So why was the difference? Why do you tell us you were led by scientists when you ignored the scientists for 3.5 weeks? And Rab just ignored that. And I bet you not one news programme will have Barry Gardiner on being interviewed at tea time tonight.
Well, I mean, the answer to your rhetorical question, Jimmy, is Boris Johnson, of course. And I'm going to something else you said earlier about Boris Johnson. I'm quite convinced that any day now he's suddenly going to appear like Churchill, like the Queen, and all his fans. It'll be like MAGA with Trump. They'll all appear with hats, and we love Boris.
Now
And he'll probably wave. He'll wave like the Queen.
No, he'll do a Chamberlain. He'll come out with the get out of
the paper,
waving it. You know.
Yeah.
They lockdown in our time.
Can we just point out that if the Financial Times is anywhere near accurate on death figures in England, frankly, I'd trust them before I'd trust any Tory politician, then the two biggest countries with the two highest death tolls are run by idiots, Boris and Donald. Perhaps if we didn't elect idiots, less people would die.
No, the Financial Times, when it was pink, and I didn't buy it, but my business partner did. And even in those days, I was politically aware. And I used to look across at times and look at the information on it. And it was, at least you know exactly what politics, what position they're coming from. And what did they announce today? 41,000 deaths, they reckon, in England?
Yeah, as opposed to the 17.5 or 18 that the English government are currently admitting to.
Well, talking about lack of piercing questioning down south, I thought Severin Carroll today at Sturgeon's presser solved the whole problem when he asked her if she was prepared to turn the care homes into ICU.
Aye. Maybe we shouldn't have
Did you
built
hear
the
him? Did you actually hear what he said? And First Minister, what are you going to do? He didn't say private care homes. He just said care homes. What are you going to do about these private care homes? Are you going to send medical staff in there? Are you going to send ventilators in there? The man's an idiot. He obviously has no idea how these places work.
No,
Yes,
and the problem is he's not made any effort to find out in the last 3 weeks. He's bleating about care homes without actually knowing what he's talking about.
Well, before we get into all the detail of the First Minister's presser, it was full of incredible detail because it was the third report from NRS. It had some shocking death lists and information that, to be honest, it's going to take any one of us a couple of days to digest. She revealed
that was a fabulous bit of rapping there, Stewart, man. You could get a record deal rapping like
that. She did say that she admitted and something that we should be recognizing, reporting this is horrible for me. She's right in the middle of all these deaths. I mean, the woman is a human being, and I don't think anybody has ever even, she showed her weak side, her real side,
I'm sorry, she's a supporter of the SNP. She's leader of the SNP. She's not a unionist, therefore she's not human.
Yeah. Talk all the weak sides just before we get on to that. Did anybody watch, you can, she's my favourite, Jackie Bailey, but her question to the health minister yesterday was, I didn't know if it was really ham acting or if she'd forgotten to take some medication, but that's about the third or fourth time I've seen her ask a question to the minister and have very near have a wee greet at the end of it. It was like Teresa when she had to say cheerio to Downing Street, just a wee sob is escaping her mouth right at the end of the question.
That's just her chin lifting.
Which one?
Uncalled for.
Sorry about that. I thought, talking about savage journalists, you could tell the question from the record that's by a woman, I forget her name, Lucy Aitken or something, but that's Paul Hutchin behind that one, and he is a savage bastard. He qualifies. We'll need to get some badges made for these guys. He qualifies one of these badges. Instead of saying NHS or something, it'll say cunt on it. That's all.
Oh dear, you're going to have to put a raspberry over that, Norman.
The question was, you have bowed to pressure, First Minister, and changed. I mean, that's a I'm having a go at you.
Well,
same with the current.
I don't know why they actually think they can get away with that. I mean, it's at times like that I kind of wish Alex Salmond and the First Minister could swap places just for some questions. So Alex could turn around and basically rip her another one.
Aye.
Bow to whose pressure? Bow to pressure from you lot.
Aye.
The Daily Record comic. Oh.
Well,
getting annoyed.
I didn't see how she's under any pressure in the first one. I mean, the last poll I seen, the SNP were polling at 53% to win for next year's election.
So at least, So at least, of course, the First Minister fulfilled Norrie's dreams, which got stuck in about, it was P&J guy who wanted to know about Scottish Care, and the First Minister said, well, you know, it's private sector care.
Yeah, and they have a responsibility to their staff to give them the correct protective gear.
Exactly. It's not actually the Scottish Government's responsibility.
Stuart, if you ever wondered if the First Minister watched us, there's proof positive. I simply have to repeat it 3 times, and both her and Jean Freeman get a hoodie it and throw it back at them.
Mate,
This is not a problem for the Scottish Government.
Mate, who was the boy? Who was the boy who asked? He genuinely asked for anecdotal evidence of what was going on in care homes because real evidence.
Wonderful.
I mean, you're asking the Deputy Chief Medical Officer to comment or give you anecdotal evidence.
No,
what a horse's arse.
Oh no, that was wonderful. By the way, the First Minister's response to the private sector care jibe, whatever it was a double whammy, because the Jean Freeman, the Health Minister, was also ready, and she got stored into it as well. So it was a double bang, 1-2.
Well, effectively, for the private healthcare sector, the Scottish Government at this particular time in the middle of a pandemic is the PPE supplier of last resort.
Yes.
Yeah, but what's actually happened, Norrie,
I mean,
is that the Scottish Government is digging them out of a hell of a hole. The Scottish Government is throwing resources at the private healthcare sector,
which, as I said earlier,
has been making money for decades and never invested enough.
Which, as I said earlier, is entirely Jackson Carlow's fault, because he knows where all the PPE is, and he knows everybody in the care home business that needs it. All he has to do is put them together. Why are they questioning the Scottish Government? They should be questioning Carlow, the painting thief.
He must be looking for a commission or something on it, mate, because he's never been known for putting decent deals together, given that he drove 2 businesses doing the tubes.
That's a deal anybody could put together, surely.
Well, you would think so. I mean, surely he could write down the numbers, Norrie, but maybe that's too simple for Jackson.
When it comes to the inquiry at the end of this, I want to see the pile of receipts from PPE bought by private care homes against the pile of receipts of PPE delivered by the Scottish Government free gratis.
Mm-hmm. Can I just bring up the Sun guy as well? I forget his name. CUNT again against his name because I didn't notice it. The question was, are you going to regret what happened that you didn't test enough people at the care homes, as if he didn't or she didn't understand what was going on at care homes anyway? And the word reckless was used. I mean, the abuse thrown at the First Minister today was phenomenal.
But it just underlines their ignorance. What do they not understand? Everybody leaving hospital is getting tested if they've had it before they go into a care home, right? So you've had the disease, you're getting sent back to your care home, you get tested. If that comes back negative, you go. If it doesn't, you get tested again. There you are. That's it.
The reality is, all care homes should now be in the position where everybody's in their own room. There is no communal. I mean, that's been the case since what, middle of March towards the back end?
3 weeks. That has been the recommendation.
Oh, it's longer than that. It's right since the beginning of March, they were told.
You're self-isolated in your own room. That means that what you should be doing is not testing the residents. You should be testing at any sign of symptoms at all. You should be testing the people going in and out of that room.
They also made such a big deal about all the care, and it's horrendous, the deaths, and it's horrendous, the jump as well. But we're still at a position where 65% of care homes in Scotland do not have cases of COVID. So,
but Jackson Carlow's going to go around there and infect them all, because it's the only way his mates can make any money on PPE.
I am the decoration committee. I have a free painting for you.
Right, well, I've got. Let's move on to the man from the Express. What an arse! Sorry, I'm keep swearing today. Take it back. Tom Martin. He fell right in his own Stewart. Will you be taking a pay cut like the Prime Minister of New Zealand? So he got his arse felt. First Minister said, well, I took a pay cut in 2008 and I haven't had a rise since then.
Mm-hmm. To be honest,
is that true?
It is, but she said it.
For Tom Martin not to know that is ludicrous. For Tom Martin not to know that as a political correspondent in Scotland, I'm sorry, but there are second-year pupils doing modern studies that know that since 2008 there's not been an increase in the First Minister's salary.
He's not. He works for the Express. Doesn't he need? All he needs to do is poke and jibe and prod the First Minister. That's his job. Doesn't matter how accurate it is. Right. Doesn't matter at all.
Do you think he gets a season ticket for Ibrox thrown in?
I've got a vision of Nicholas Sturgeon and Jane Freeman as they walk out of the briefing room winking at each other at today's performance, because they really they did have an Alex Salmond. They did what she doesn't do in the Parliament, but they did it to the journalists today.
They are so desperate to equate what's happening in Scotland, what's happening in England with what's happening in Scotland.
They can't have Scotland looking as if it's got in any way has done anything better than London.
Well, all the problems that are happening in England, they drag them up here and ask the First Minister. And she, I mean, to be honest with you, had the politicians in England, had the Tories politicians in England in charge down there, had half a brain, they would have swatted up on our answers. There is no point me giving you the number of bibs, aprons, goggles, because the minute I do, it'll be out of date. Do we have sufficient for the ordering period in front of us? Yes, we do. We believe. You know, I mean,
it's kind of unfortunate for London, though, that they do keep rolling out. I mean, they've got a wee relay going on of who's going to stand in front of the podium because Boris is feared and hiding. But the relay team's pish. They're really bad. I mean, they can't, and they've not got a B team to pop somebody else in there. It might have, they'd have been as well going and getting an official spokesman or something like that. Hire Trevor McDonald out of retirement to be their official spokesman.
Well, here's a question. Hopefully, Peston will overhear. Why is the Prime Minister? Why has he gone over his 7 days convalescence when 7 days is enough for everybody else that's had it? Mm-hmm. Why isn't he out in front of the public? Why is he still self-isolating or whatever?
Well, clearly the advice for Dominic Cummings is there's a steamroller marching down the path. Didn't he stand in front of it? Let your minions stand in front of it.
There's a shortage of new fridges, don't forget.
Oh, I forgot. Of course, Matt Hancock bought them all for Brexit.
No, everybody decided to buy freezers and fridges as soon as we went into lockdown.
Matt Hancock, the first health minister ever to have his own designation in his surname.
Do you know what I'd like to see? I'd like Piers Morgan to ask one simple question. Why can't Dominic Cummings answer for himself instead of hiding under, instead of being anonymous?
It's sort of traditional. What's his name? Who was the Labour guy? Alistair Campbell was unusual in as much as he did a sort of Bernard Ingham thing where he took the press on because he was better at it than most.
Because he considers him, and let's be honest, 95% of the time he was right, he considers himself far more capable than those questioning.
Well, they designed him. What was it? Malcolm Tucker in the thick of it was based entirely on Alistair Campbell.
Could Malcolm Tucker play the pipes?
I don't think he could, mate, and he certainly couldn't play them as well as Alistair Campbell can.
Well, Peter Capaldi probably can.
Maybe.
The actor.
Nah, he strikes me as a flute or a fiddle man.
Peter Capaldi.
Aye.
He's a great swearer.
So, now that we've exhausted just about everything.
I got some bad news for you guys. And it's probably just as well I saved it for the end. I ended up swap channels as usual to foreign channels late last night, and I discovered that apparently there's two bits of very bad news. One is there's no guarantee that anybody will ever be immune to the coronavirus C19, and there is no guarantee that they could even ever come up with a vaccine for the C19 because it is a new virus. It is completely new in the field. So there you go. That'll cheer you up no end.
Oh, but that can't possibly be right, Stuart, because Matt Handick told us on the news last night that they were chucking money at it and they'd have a cure for it by September.
Well, that was the former clinical director for the European Commission, who's a woman, a professor, lives here in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And the former director of the professional in his field who retired from the World Health Organization last year. So these guys should know what they're talking about.
Well, the problem with that is it might make Dominic Cummings right.
Herd immunity.
Yeah, because if that's the case.
No, that's the point I'm making. There could be no such thing as herd immunity. There could be no immunity even if you've had the bloody disease.
All right, I see what you mean.
Norrie, I'll give you a giggle to finish with, pal. There was a fire on a farm in Kent last night. A couple of gas cylinders went up and everything, massive explosion. Loads of chickens died. The only thing that's kind of gutted about the whole thing, though, is that it was in Kent, not Kentucky, because you would have got some fabulous headlines.
The Sun. Kent yucky chicken.
Exactly, mate. Kent yucky fried chicken. It would have been brilliant. How gutting is that?
Super Cali. Never mind.
Oh, now you've got me thinking.
Oh, did he do that on an empty head, mate?
The Colonel's secret recipe: chicken shit. Sorry.
Didn't he? I'm reading a book at the minute about zombie chickens, mate, and it's quite entertaining. So I'll pass it on.
Zombie chickens.
Yes.
Oh well. Okay.
It's zombie chickens through in Coatbridge, mate. It's quite entertaining.
I tell you what. Well, men chickens can be vicious buggers.
You mean cocks?
Yeah, cockerels. My aunt used to keep chickens, and she had a cockerel called Jimmy, and this thing would take your eye out. Oh no, it was all right with her, but anybody else went near it, it used to just up in the air. It couldn't fly, but it could jump high enough to get face height.
That's funny. My Auntie Emma used to keep chickens. In and out of the hoods.
Cha-cha.
Well,
maybe
gentlemen,
that's the way forward. Maybe we'll all be keeping chickens by the end of this because everything will have gone to pot and you'll have to have chicken coop out the back to feed yourself.
Chicken for a ham.
Now that's clever.
Right, okay, guys. Thanks, Jimmy Hutton. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead and Stewart. I hope you enjoyed the show, folks, and we'll no doubt catch up with you tomorrow when we'll have another litany of stupid questions from Scotland's press. Cheers for now.